Hey, juniors, let's take a look at our assignment for today. Today is Friday, October the 15th, and today we are going to be looking at text structure. We're going to be assessing your ability to be able to check to see what the structure of a text is, and then analyze why that structure may or may not be used, okay? So once you open up the form from today, it'll open up to a form that looks like this. We've got the rainforest at the top here. First name, last name, block, pretty straightforward. The first few questions, it gives you a definition. It asks you to pick which of these text structures is this, okay? An action and its results are discussed. Which one is it, right? And so you'll just select those. The first six are those. And then we start to get into little short snippets of text. And then we ask you, read this, tell us what the structure that's being used. So you would go in here and you would look to see, based on this reading, which of these structures is most likely being used. I know in the real world or in larger text that you might have more than one structure in a text. We did try to make sure that these were singular so there wouldn't be a discussion or there wouldn't be confusion about them, right? And then once we go down to number 11, this is the constructed response, and this is the one that we really want you to look at. 1 through 10 will be a practice grade. Number 11 will be the learning check. And this is a constructed response in which we're asking you to analyze the text structure and which would be the best to use in a particular case. So let's take a look at the question here. Your teacher has assigned an informative paper about how the loss of the Amazon rainforest is impacting climate change. The Brazilian government changed the laws about 30 years ago to allow more businesses to use the valuable land, and a series of large-scale operations and political scandals since then, spaced out about every 3 to 5 years, has sped up the loss of rainforest. Which of the structures that we've talked about would be the best to use to present your information? And again, this is a constructed response. We're going to use the TPAC model. Now, the TPAC is not the grade. That's not what we're doing. We're writing a constructed response, but we're using the TPAC model to make sure that your answer is complete, it is well-rounded, and it addresses the question, provides example, and analyzes your answer, okay? When you look at this, there is no wrong answer, no one right or wrong answer, okay? If you look back up here, these are the 5 more common structures that we're looking at. Which one of these might you use? And there's a multitude of them. Of the 5, you could probably use any one of them, really, depending on what you thought you would be writing about. Now, that's going to be the key, because once you say the structure that I would use is blank, then you're going to have to explain it. I would probably have taken it this way, and this is why that structure would be the best. For instance, remember, chronological is time, beginning to end, right? It's in order as it would happen. Sequence is in order of step by step by step, and instructions, directions, things like that. Cause and effect, how are things connected? If this happens, what will be the outcome? Or this is what I see, how did we get there? Problem solution, here's a problem, here's a solution. Will it make a difference? And then comparing and contrast, showing how things are similar and how they're different. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up picking one of these structures and then figuring out how you would write this. Now, the thing is, you're not writing this informative essay. This is not a paper you're writing. Make sure you read the question carefully, because it asks which of the structures would you most likely use, okay? And then why. So make sure that you focus on that. Again, don't forget the TPAC model, the different elements that are involved in the TPAC. You have the topic sentence. We use part of the question with a singular and definitive answer. So you're not going to pick 2 structures. You're going to pick 1. You're going to pull examples. Now, there's no text to pull from necessarily. Maybe part of this question, some of the background of the question. But this is where you're going to just start saying, I would focus on this part. And this is why that structure would be the most effective. Now, once you get to the analysis piece, that's where you're going to make those connections. And you're going to draw from that example and look at that structure and say, why is this the best structure to use? Okay. And then the concluding sentence just kind of wraps it up. Don't forget that we do have the TPAC pieces up on the wall, and the TPAC model is also posted for you to use on Classroom. Again, I do want to emphasize to you that you are not being graded on the TPAC. This is not a TPAC assignment. I know a lot of people say that, oh, we have to do a TPAC today. No, you're doing a constructive response today. We're just going to use the TPAC model to use it, right? So you will be graded on your ability to look at, we will be looking at your ability to answer those questions, okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. Because I know one of the things that we have, I know that some people have struggled with is taking, like, how do I know I've got a good answer? How do I know that this is well done? So let's take a look at some examples and explain why. Let's assume that the assignment was this. You've been asked to write an informative paper about cheese dip. Okay, which structure would you most likely use? Okay, number one, here's the first example. There have been many that have claimed to be the first cheese dip. I think that whoever was the first can claim the title and brag all they want. I would need to research this and find out who was first. This writing example would get you a 6 out of 10. Basically because it doesn't answer the question at all. The question is, which is the best structure? This never says anything about structure. So no matter what else goes into that answer, and it can be 20 sentences long, it doesn't answer the question. So it would only get you a 6. Let's take a look at example number 2. If I had to write a paper on the history of cheese dip, I think I would use the chronological structure. This is about the history of cheese dip, so it makes sense to start with the earliest dips and work to the present day. Now, this is starting to get better. It's a 7 because we do answer the question. It says, this is the structure I would use, and it starts to hint at the why. But notice there's no examples, there's no evidence, and there's very little analysis. Example number 3. If I had to write a paper on the history of cheese dip, I think I would use chronological structure. This is about the history of the dip, so it makes sense to start with the earliest and work to the present day. For example, I would try to find the first record of a restaurant that was selling cheese dip. Then find a few different places that were offering different kinds of cheese dip all the way up to today. History works in that order from start to finish. So that's how I would write my paper too. Now, this one would get you an 8 because you are meeting the standard, okay? The standard is analyze this text structure for its effectiveness. So if you wrote an answer like this, you'd probably get the 8. Now, why? Well, first off, it does say which structure, right? It gives us a structure. It answers that question. It also gives us an example. I would find the first, then I would do this and this and this, okay? And so we start to pull an example, and then we explain it. History works in that order, okay? It makes sense to do it in this way, all right? So we're starting to pull all those pieces together. One thing I think this one does lack is it doesn't have a conclusion. It doesn't kind of give a take on it, or not a really clear one. Look at example number 4. If I had to write a paper on the long and complicated history of the bit of heaven called cheese dip, I think that the best structure to use would be the chronological structure. Notice we have some extra words in there. We have some life. We have some description. And we also use a very superlative, the best structure, right? Not I would use, but the best structure to use. Chronological structure allows the writer to track the history of the cheese dip through the decades, going through them in the order from the earliest to the latest. This means that the reader can work backwards from what they know today backwards to the first cheese dip and see how it set the path. This would give the reader the long view of cheese dip and hopefully show how it's changed over the years into what they're familiar with today. History works in that order from start to finish, so that's how I write my paper too. Now, that would get you a 10. Now, I know some of you are going to be like, well, of course it's a 10 because it's longer. Well, yeah, but it does more. Not only is it more, it has a lot more lively words, it has a lot more information in it, right? But it also gives you that analysis. This is why I would do it. And then it puts it in context. It says, hey, look, you're familiar with this cheese dip. How did we get here? And we work our way backwards through the chronological order, right? And so it really gives that sense of relevancy and importance and why it is going to happen that way. So if you are absent today, you do need to do this assignment. You are free to use this if you need help, like trying to figure out how to do it. you're in class or you're working on late or whatever. But if you are absent, you do need to make up this assignment, and hopefully this will help you get you on the right path. Please, again, remember to make sure that you're reaching out to people if you need help. Let Ms. McGuire or I know what you need so that we can help you be successful. Next week, we get into the research.